It's June 30th, 1960. A nation celebrates freedom, but one man dares to speak a truth that will shake the world, which will later lead to his assassination. This is the story of Patrice Lumumba and how he was assassinated. Patrice Emery Lumumba was born in Kasai in 1925 in Congo. He was born in a poor background. He attended he at age 11 he attended a missionary school. So based on the fact that he was born in a poor background, he couldn't really afford books. He couldn't afford books. He was a good reader. He loved reading. Patrice Lumumba loved reading, dancing, and he was a good dresser. But based on the fact he was from a poor background, he couldn't afford books or go to a prestigious school. So he made use of the school library, the missionary school he was attending. They had a library. In the library, during his free periods, he go to a library. He will read about Congo's history, read about world history, learn politics, learn different languages. During his time in the library, he also learned about King Leopold II. He was the former ruler of Belgium, and by that time, Belgium had already colonized Congo. So Patrice Lumumba read about the cruelty that this man brought upon the Congolese because, like I said, at that time he was the ruler of Belgium, and the Belgium had colonized Congo. So he was the one in charge. Let's just put it like he was the one in charge. So Patrice Lumumba in his early life he read about the cruelty because King Leopold II his reign ended in 1909. In 1909 actually, but he was one of the most cruel people here. Like he was one of the most cruel Belgium leader ever. Like he was really terrible. He had a really terrible reign, especially the way he treated the Congolese. So during Patrice Lumumba's early life, he read about them, and at a very young age, they started shaping the way he thought of life. They started shaping his political ambition. They started like awakening a fire in him. They started shape his political ambition at a very young age. So after elementary school, started working. He worked in a mining company. He first worked in a mining company. Then from there, he went to Kisangani. When he went to Kisangani, he also made use of the library there in Kisangani because Kisangani since it was a big city. There are lots of libraries there. Yes. So we made use of it. Kisangani was since it was like I said, Kisangani was a big city. So a lot of these colonial masters they live there. A lot of these Belgium how should I call them? A lot of these Belgium representatives, a lot of these Belgium big men they lived there. So he wasn't getting certain privileges, and not forgetting the fact he was also poor. So Patrice Lumumba, when he moved to Stanleyville, he wasn't getting certain privileges. He will ride at the back of the bus because they will prioritize the Belgium representatives. They will prioritize the Belgians. They usually prioritize the Belgians in Stanleyville. So riding in the bus as a Congolese, you have to give the front seat to the Belgian. Then you as a Congolese, you move to the back. Then worst of it is if you're poor, most of it you're poor. Imagine if you're a Congolese, you move to the back. Then if you're poor, you move to the back of the back of the back. So that is the life that Patrice Lumumba went through when he moved to. But one good thing about it, he made you good use of the library that was there. He read. He had to. He sharpened his French because growing up he mostly spoke the Congolese native language. So when he went to Stanleyville, he had to work on his French. He had to speak good French. Then after shaping his French, he now got a job as a postal worker. After Ghana gained its independence in 1967, Patrice Lumumba was moved to form a political party called the MNC, which is in French, which means Mouvement National du Congo. In English, it means National Movement of Congo. So after seeing the way Ghana, not only Patrice Lumumba, it was not only Patrice Lumumba, many Congolese at that time, there are a lot of parties, political parties coming up in Congo because of the fact that they were moved by how African countries were getting independence. Not only Ghana was getting independence at that period, at that time, there were a lot of African countries getting independence in 1957, 1958, 1956 to 1960. A lot of African countries were getting independence at that period. So a lot of Congolese, not only Patrice Lumumba, they were moved to form political parties for a better Congo. So and there was a drastic transformation when Patrice Lumumba attended. He was invited to attend a program held by the Ghanaian president. That was after Ghana gained its independence. So the Ghanaian president was moved. He wanted to revive Africa. Obviously, he had visions for Africa. He had a vision for Africa. So he wanted to revive Africa. So after the Ghanaians gained independence, he now organized a program, a conference. The name of the conference was called All Africa People Conference. So he invited leaders in many countries, invited a lot of political figures out from many countries. So Patrice Lumumba was one of them. When Patrice Lumumba went there, he heard the way a lot of politicians had vision. He even heard the way the Ghanaian president spoke about the plans he had for Africa. Then Patrice Lumumba there at the program, Patrice Lumumba, he was opportune to speak. When he was talking, he gave a speech. In his speech, he said that Africa, the only way Africa can move forward is if they are united. So he was asking for aid. He was saying that for us to unite as Africa and move forward, we have to help one another and have to do it the right way, obviously. So we have to help one another. So that was what he said in the speech. And but after when he came back from Ghana after our friendly conference, when he came back from Ghana, he was moved politically. Like he was moved. He wanted to turn MNC into a mass political movement. And in 1959, there was riot in Congo because a lot of Congolese were inspired, or they were inspired by the way a lot of African countries were gaining independence. Like I said, during the 1955 to 1960 years, a lot of African countries were gaining independence. Even Cameroon gained independence in 1960, Ghana gained independence. A lot of African countries were gaining independence within that period. So the Congolese were like, they were moved. So they organized a riot in 1959 for independence. That was like a peaceful independence riot. It was a protest, like a peaceful independence protest. Like in other words, they were seeking independence from Belgium. After Belgium saw the Congolese were seeking for independence, they had to reform their political rules. They had to reform the political rules in the country. Like they had to reform they had to be a political reform in the country. Did a political reform in the country in order to calm down the Congolese, or in order for them to forget about it, just to fool them, yes, just to fool them so that they are going to forget about independence. So they're just trying to comfort the Congolese. So they had to work on they had to do a political reform, like changing the terms, how long the president is going to last, how long the elections will take, how fast is going the results going to come out, all sort of things. So they try to work on it, they try to touch a little bit of some of those rules, but it was good for some time, but Congolese were getting impatient because obviously some of those reforms were taking too long. They just always promises, but the Congolese were getting impatient. They didn't really want all the reform. They saw the reform, the political reform was not going to bring any change. So on the 30th of October that very year, 1959, there was peak repression. There was peak repression, meaning peak riot. A lot of Congolese were out in the street, they were rioting, they were protesting, they're like, we want independence, we want independence, we want independence, we want to be free, we want freedom, we have to have the right, or we have to control our own resources. So, but that's what was going on at that time, and um a lot of Belgian officers were released on the street. Not only Belgian officers, the Congolese army, they were released. There was an ultimatum. I think there was an ultimatum passed at that time that from 5 p.m. or no, from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. there should be no one out on the street. So there was an ultimatum passed at that time. So meaning if you have a shop at that time during that big depression, October 1959, meaning if you had a shop, 6 o'clock you have to be closed, and you have to open before 5 a.m. So if you had to open it after 5 a.m., a few minutes past 5 a.m., so there was an automatic, no one on the street, all the entertainment, all the bars, all the clubs, everything was shut down at 6 o'clock. So it's just like a ghost town. There was actually nobody on the street because the Belgium officials were trying to, because they believe that all those gatherings where they aren't causing the gossip all and down, because they believe that people, when people go out to the bars in the evening, that's 6 7, because 6 7 is the time most people are coming back from their job sites, from their offices. So 6 7 they go out, they take a beer or they drink wine, and when they are drinking, they are discussing, they are gossiping about what is going on in the country, and they are plotting how they are going to protest the next day and all those sort of things. So there was an automated pass at that time. Nobody was out, nobody's out from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. So everybody was indoors. So that was their own way of maybe like trying to calm things out, but they was only making matters worse. They even got to an extent where they arrested Patrice Lumumba. They said he was the one organizing the riots. So he was arrested. He was arrested. But before that, before his arrest in October 1959, he was also arrested. I think beginning of 1959 for fraud, because when the Belgium officials saw he was getting into a little bit of politics, they had to bring back the case where he was still working. I don't know if this is true, but they just brought up a case. They brought up a case. We don't know if the case was true, or you don't know if the case was well deserved, or it was he was framed, because they brought up a case where he was still working as a postal worker. They said they brought up a case against him, that corruption. So he was sent to prison at that time. He made 6 months in prison at that time. So when he started getting into politics, he was sent to prison for a postal for corruption when he was still a postal worker. So he made 6 months in prison at that time. He got released. So this was his second arrest. He got arrested again October 1959, when there was big depression all over in the country. Everybody was rioting, everybody was tired, everybody wanted freedom. So he got arrested again and sent to prison. So that's it. They said he was the one organizing the riot because, yeah, obviously he was one of the most influential people at that time in the country, the most politically influential person in the country at that time. So they had to arrest him because they say he was the one organizing them. Obviously, if you look at it very well, he was the one organizing them to a certain extent. But in after all the ultimatums that nobody open at 6, nobody do this, nobody do this, nobody do this. So the government now decided, the government, when I say the government, put in bracket there Belgium officials, because at that time the government were all the government officials were just Belgium puppets. They're just Belgian dolls. They're just being controlled by the Belgians. They're just Belgian dolls. They're being controlled by the Belgians. So in on the 26th of January, around, yes, the 26th of January 1960, that is when the government the government now decided to address the public instead of placing an ultimatum. That was what they supposed to do ever since, but they decided to place an ultimatum. So the government now decided to address the public in on the January 1960. And when they wanted to address the public, the most of they saw that many people were not ready to listen to them. Why? Because they had not released their influential figure. That was Patrice Lumumba. Patrice, they cannot address the public. Meanwhile, the person, their leader, was in jail. So the government saw that they couldn't address the public in a calm way without Patrice Lumumba being around. So Patrice Lumumba was then released on the 26th of January 1960 before the speech. So as he was released on 26th 1960, the government had a speech. The government addressed the public. They spoke, and yeah, the country was calm for some while. The country was calm. The country was a little bit calm. Everybody was calm because they try to touch on the rules to make everybody feel good. And so fast forward, okay, as Patrice Lumumba was released in January 1960, he now came up with a vision. He now had a new vision in mind, and the vision he had in mind was to unite with other political parties, because he saw that he saw that because there are a lot of political parties in Congo at that time, a lot of them. So he saw that them trying to fight the Belgium officials one by one, like them trying to fight the Belgian official divided isn't going to be effective that much. So he now brought up something. He now said, okay, it's time for them to unite. He now tried to send letters, wrote letters sent to the other political parties like, okay, let's unite and fight these people. Let's unite and fight these people together. Let's unite and do this together. Let's unite and fight these people together. He wrote letters saying to them, but there was one man he united with Kasavubu's party in he united with Kasavubu's party, which he made a deal with Kasavubu. As he united he made a deal. Then he's like, okay, and when I met Kasavubu, he's like, your party is powerful, my party is powerful. They are both influential parties. He now made a deal that, okay, we are going to merge our parties together, and you run for president, and I'll be a prime minister. So in 19 in on the 23rd of June 1960, Kasavubu was elected president and Patrice Lumumba prime minister, which was actually Congo's first prime minister. After Congo gained its independence from Belgium in 1960, and the first election had been carried out with Kasavubu the president and Patrice Lumumba the prime minister, Belgium then organized an independence speech on the 30th of June 1960. So on that day, Patrice Lumumba wasn't really meant to talk. Patrice Lumumba, not really. Patrice Lumumba wasn't meant to talk on that day. He wasn't meant to give a speech because the Belgian the Belgian were really scared of him. Actually, the Belgian already knew what he was capable of. They were able to predict that, okay, if you allow this man to talk on this day, he may likely do something we are not going to like. He may likely do something we will not like. So the Belgian are like, okay, Patrice Lumumba wasn't going to talk on the program menu, on the program list. Patrice Lumumba's name wasn't there. He was not meant to. He was just there to attend the ceremony, the independence ceremony, and just wish farewell to Belgium. So it was just like a goodbye party to Belgium. So to the Belgians, no matter how they put it. So the king of Belgium at that time, which was King Leopold, he went he went on stage. He talked. No. The first person who talked was the president, Kasavubu. Kasavubu first of all went on stage. He talked about the great things the Belgium has been doing to them, how good they are to them. He kept on praising Belgium, kept praising Belgium, like, okay, ever as we were under them, they were treating us very good. They were very good to us. They provided us with they gave us electricity, they gave us this, provided education. They kept on praising Belgium. Meanwhile, all those things they were saying were the opposite of what the Belgians had been doing to them. But obviously, Kasavubu he was just there for, let's say, like the position and the money, and maybe Belgians were taking good care of him. So I'm just saying, I was not there. So Kasavubu only talked about the good things. Patrice Lumumba was like, okay, Patrice Lumumba was sitting. He was sitting and just listening to you. He was just shaking his head like, what is this guy talking about? What is this guy talking about? Then King Baldwin came up. He also talked about the great things they have done for Congo. We did this. We build wonderful infrastructures. We send their children to school. We build good schools for their children, medical facilities. We help the Congolese. We help all of those things they were saying. They did the opposite. So all those Belgian officials they came up talking. Baldwin of Belgium came and talked. The other officials they praised themselves. Um, King Mobutu, their guy, President Mobutu, sorry, their guy came up, praised them, praised the Belgium. Oh, that great people that they helped us, they're fantastic to us. And since Patrice Lumumba wasn't on the program menu, what he did was that he boycotted like the program and came on stage. Nobody expected him to be there. Nobody, because he was not meant to speak on that day. So came on stage, picked up the mic, pap. He now started talking about how terrible the Belgians has been ruling them, how terrible of colonial masters they have been to them, the Congolese. Talked about how they are ripping them off, talked about how they are using their minerals, how they are using their minerals, but they are not helping them in any way. Talked about all those things, talk about terrible things, talk about how them the Congolese are poor, they don't get same advantages as the Belgians in their own country. You know what of thing where people from another country come to your own country and they are ahead of you guys, like they are more prioritized than any other person in your country. I understand it's good to like take care of your tourists, all those other things, but this was not really a tourist kind of thing. It was not really a tourist kind of treatment. It was like they were like putting the Belgians in front of the Congolese in their own country, and the Congolese were really, really happy about it. So Patrice Lumumba criticized all those things. He criticized them, and the Belgian King Baldwin, he was not really happy with the speech that Patrice Lumumba gave. So after that, there was really chaos. I think the after dinner party, because the after party, because after that speech, after that ceremony, after the speech, everything, there was supposed to be an after party. There was supposed to be like just a dinner for them now to eat, drink. So King Baldwin even wanted to go home. I think so. I read somebody said he was even threatening to fly back to his country, Belgium, obviously that very night without attending the dinner party. But King Mobutu, um, Kasavubu, I mean King Kasavu, President Kasavubu now pleaded with him like, okay, let's not make this thing too obvious, like something is going on, and he just stayed for the dinner, but everything was not really fine. After the speech and everything, they gained independence, obviously. The Belgian Congo was now under the Congolese, so a lot of those Belgian officials were removed from sacked from those big positions, and the Belgians were put there. But this is one thing that I think it was kind of like a mistake. It was not really a mistake, but at least they're going to learn. But it was a mistake at the time. The Congolese didn't really have the experience to run the country. They were uneducated, sorry to say, but they were not really that educated politically. Not like education like in a way they can solve maths, talk, speak good French and stuff. No, like educated politically, they didn't really have same vision Patrice Lumumba had. A lot of them were really terrible leaders. A lot of them were really terrible leaders, terrible at politics and everything. So after Congo gained independence, the country was not really, a lot of those officials that the Congolese officials that they put in those positions, they were embezzling, they were taking wrong decisions, making wrong decisions and stuff like that. They're really terrible. And some of them were even they were still collecting bribes from the Belgian officials to do their dirty work for them. Because as the Congolese gained independence from Belgium, it was not 100% independence, because they signed a contract, they signed a treaty like, okay, we are going to give you guys independence, but we still have control over certain things, because some of the mines there were still controlled by the Belgians. Some of the mines there, because Congo is very rich in minerals, and that is one thing that the Belgians were even really interested in, because the mineral and everything, they will tap it, go and sell it, but they will not take good care of the Congolese. That was the Congolese problem. You're like, okay, you come to my hometown, you tap our minerals, you go and sell for a good amount, you make lots of profit, but you cannot build good schools for us, you cannot build good hospitals for us. So that was the Congolese problem. So after the game, they always sign a treaty that, okay, this is how the percentage will give you, this is the percentage will give you, but the mines were actually still controlled by the Belgians. They were only going to give you a certain percentage to the to the Congo government, or to the Congolese government. So even the army, I think the army was still under 100% under the Congolese government, according to the treaty they signed. The army was still fully under the Congolese government. And some of these naive officials that they kept in those big positions, some of these naive Congolese officials they kept in those big positions, they were still taking bribes from Belgium, from the Belgium. from the Belgian troops and everything. And after Patrice Lumumba became prime minister and um Patrice Lumumba became prime minister, he assigned Mobutu as chief of staff. He acted Victor Lula as army commander and Mobutu as chief of staff. Take note of that name Mobutu because it's going to come up later on in the journey when we are talking about the assassination of Patrice Lumumba because he played a role in that part. So take good note of that name and just keep it one side. After the independence and after Patrice Lumumba assigned those officials, there was another riot, but this time it was between some of these Belgian officials and their allies against Patrice Lumumba and his allies. So there was a riot. So the Belgian officials, since the army was fully under the Belgian, so the Belgian commanders there, they were like, okay, they were giving up. They were like, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, do this, do this. So so they were like, okay, it was a riot between the Belgian officials and Patrice Lumumba and his allies. So there was actually a riot, and Patrice Lumumba actually wanted full control because he wasn't happy with the fact that they were giving partial control over their own country. So he wanted full control. So he then reached out to the United Nations, the UN, the UN. He reached out to them. He was demanding that the Belgian troops should be chased away from his country and they should be granted full control over their own country, the Congo. So Patrice Lumumba reached out to the UN. The UN hesitated. The UN did not want to involve. The UN said they will not get. The UN said they were not supposed to involve in their political affairs. They're not supposed to involve in the political affairs of Congo. So Patrice Lumumba not treating them. Patrice Lumumba, okay, now like treating them. He not told them, okay, if people don't help us, we are going to go to the Soviet Union. And the UN was scared, they're really scared of the Soviet Union because they did not want the Soviet Union to gain base in the heart of Africa because of all the diamond, the gold. Like I said, Congo is very, 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 very rich in mineral. So the UN were scared. The UN do not want the Soviet Union to gain access to that mineral because of what they are going to do, obviously. So that one is a topic for another day. We'll treat on that on another day. So based on the fact that the UN was scared of the Soviet Union, they now had to intervene. They intervened. They now had to send some of the Belgian troops away, but it was not. They do not fully intervene. It was just partial intervening. That kind of thing, like you're helping somebody, but you don't want to help the person. So you're like, okay, someone has fallen into a pit. You're pulling one hand, but you're not really pulling enough. So that was what the UN was doing. That was what the UN was doing to Congo at that time. But Patrice Lumumba wasn't really happy with all that. So he wanted full access because at that time, 50% of the uranium used in the world was from Congo. You just need to get how rich Congo was. 75% of the cobalt was from Congo, 70% of industrial diamond was from Congo. I mean, 70% of industrial diamond in the entire world was mined from Congo at that time in that 1960 period. So you just need to know Congo was really rich. So the UN tried to intervene, but the UN did not intervene fully. So Lumumba then told them that okay, you guys are intervening, but people don't intervene fully. At this point, I have no other option but to call the Soviet Union into this situation. After treating them the first time, they're like, okay, to intervene, but they're not intervening the way Lumumba wanted. So Lumumba demanded that okay, they should stop the sensation going on in Katanga because there's a lot of riot going on in Katanga because a lot of those Belgian troops were fighting. It was just like a small war going on between the Belgian troops and 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 Patrice Lumumba troops because they wanted access to those mines because most of those mines were in Katanga, so they wanted full access to these mines. So they like fight over the mine. Now Patrice Lumumba was like, okay, UN, you guys are helping, but I want us to have full control. I need people to do this, take the Belgian troops away from our mines, but they don't want it. So Patrice Lumumba now reached out to the Soviet Union. I was like, okay, we need your help. But before the Soviet Union to intervene, the Belgians, I don't know, Beijing was just like a conspiracy, but the Belgians went and met Kasavubu, the current president at that time, actually Lumumba's former ally. Patrice Lumumba's former ally. So they were allies, they understand everything. So they were allies. Okay, the Belgians have been and met him. I'm like, okay, Patrice Lumumba has called the Soviet Union into this, but we don't want the Soviet Union to get into this. So do something. So now Kasavubu accused Lumumba of plunging Congo into civil war. He accused Lumumba that okay, all the war going in Katanga, you are the one causing it, and he now stripped him away of his prime minister post. So Patrice Lumumba wasn't more a prime minister. So Patrice Lumumba soon now went out on radio and said that okay, Kasavubu, he now accused Kasavubu. He said okay, Kasavubu now is an ally of our enemies. Is an ally of the people who are fighting against. So Kasavubu is no longer our president. So just those are two government rules. Then that was not all. That was not all. Mobutu at that time was also working with the UN. Mobutu at that time was also working with the UN. So Mobutu now came out openly and said, okay, Patrice Lumumba isn't is considered a threat in this country because he's now causing the war. So Mobutu now ganged up with Kasavubu. So now in that country, in that country alone, there were how many governments? There were two governments. Patrice Lumumba's government and Kasavubu and Mobutu's government. Hashtag the UN and Belgium. That was what was going on. So there were two government battling in one ruling in one country. Patrice Lumumba came and said, okay, this man, he's no longer our president. He's working with our enemies. Kasavubu came out and said that, okay, this man, he's the one causing this war in Katanga. He's the one causing this war that is leading to our children dying every day. This man is our enemy. So there were two governments. And the person backing, and like I said, one man that was backing up Kasavubu was Mobutu. Remember the very Mobutu that said we should take note of his name. Actually, was under assigned him. Was under assigned him and kept him chief of staff in the army. Kept him chief of staff in the army. But now he now ganged up with Kasavubu. Kasavubu, which was also Patrice Lumumba's former political ally. So they now ganged up like okay, because they were obviously receiving bribes from the Belgium, the UN, understand? Because everybody saw Patrice Lumumba as a threat because he was already involving the Soviet Union into that. So that is how everything took place, and yeah, there are two countries in, there are two governments in one country. Based on some classified files on the 18th of August 1960, President Eisenhower asked the CIA to assassinate Patrice Lumumba or kill Patrice Lumumba. Based on classified file that came out years later, we don't know how true that is, but they're saying okay, President Eisenhower was another act because if you come to think about it very well, the USA, the United States, were then benefiting the highest, more yeah, the highest from Congo because when all those minerals were being extracted, when Belgium will take all the mineral, extract the mineral, the diamond, the uranium, when they extract them, they will mostly sell it to the US. Yes, and the US was making use of it. So the US they really benefited a lot from 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 Congo. They were benefiting a lot from Congo. So the president was like, okay, the president of the United States saw that okay, this guy was a threat to them. This guy was a threat to them. They said, okay, they had a meeting and like, okay, this guy Patrice Lumumba, he's a threat. He's a threat to our nation. He's a threat not only to us but to yes, he's going to restrict us from profiting from his country. So they now ordered his assassin. They now ordered the CIA to kill him. And in by that time, they had already stripped it of every position, right? That already stripped Patrice Lumumba of every government position. Like he was just like, hmm, he was like a terrorist in his own country. You get so he had already been stripped off of all government position. He had already stripped off everything. Then the new president was they president maintained the president was Kasavubu and Mobutu. Mobutu, because Mobutu and Kasavubu like became allies. Like I said, Kasavubu remained president, then Mobutu joined him. You guess, because Mobutu and Kasavubu, like I said, they were cooperating together. So they now formed their own government maintaining Kasavubu as president. I don't know if you get, they formed a government maintaining Kasavubu as president. So in October 1960, there was a house arrest on Lumumba in Leopoldville. His house in Leopoldville, the house after the CIA had ordered his assassination. But before, as the CIA ordered his assassination, they were, when they said okay, the CIA would order his assassination, they don't want to make it look dirty. They don't want to like okay to dirty their name, so they had to look for it. They had to, within that time they think of a strategy like okay, how are we going to kill this man? How are we going to kill him? How are we going to do this? How are we going to kill him? Because I even read an article, they said okay, based on the classified files that came out years later, they said one of the CIA scientists, his name was Dr. Sidney Grill. Sidney Grill, one of the CIA's scientists, he was able to come up with like a virus, right? A virus hashtag poison. He was going to come up with a virus that okay, they look for a way and give him, so it's going to kill him. So I don't know, just kill him in a very too obvious way. You understand? So the plan the CIA had was they were going to kill Patrice Lumumba, but they're just looking for the right time to administer the virus or the poison for him to consume it. Then when he then consumes it, he's not just going to drastically just die. So he's not going to raise questions and all those sort of things to not dirty their image as the CIA, because obviously they're trying to like move private and stuff like that. They're not trying to move in a very obvious way. So the scientist Dr. Sydney Grill brought up the virus, but time was running out before they had access to administer, because at that time he had already been under house arrest. Yeah, he was under house arrest, so it was kind of like difficult because obviously he had his personal chef, all those sort of things, and the UN were protecting because the UN already knew he was going to be assassinated. And the UN normally, no matter what, the UN cannot just let someone die because they're going to like he died. What did the UN do? The UN or like okay, they try to like good people all just should behave like okay, us wow, good people were on the right side, were for peace. So the UN had sent some of their officials to go and protect him in his home. So that was why it was difficult for the CIA to administer the poison that was going to kill him. According to classified files, files that came out years later. So it was difficult for the CIA to now administer the poison for him to drink. So because he was under the protection of the UN. And mind you, um by that time, as the CIA was looking for ways to administer that poison, the Mobutu's men were also after him, because remember they had stripped him of his government position. They said he was responsible for causing civil war. So by that time, obviously, they labeled him a criminal in his own country. So by that time, Mobutu's men were already after him. That okay, they had to capture him. The CIA was after him, they had to kill him. Then yeah, the CIA private agents were after him because to that okay, they had to kill him. But now the UN were trying to play good, protect him. As he was under house arrest, he was under the protection of the UN by that time. So the UN just told him, okay, we know what is out there. All of these people are trying to kill you, but we cannot allow them to kill you, because if you allow them to just kill you, that there are going to be a lot of questions around the world. Why didn't we protect you? Why didn't we do this? We're going to be labeled as the bad people here, or we're going to be labeled as okay, we just want to make good use of the resources in the country. So the only way for us to do this is for us to protect you so that we can look as good people, obviously. So the UN had to try every possible way to like protect Patrice Lumumba. The UN had to try every possible way to protect him. Then I think on November 25th, November, That was 1960. 20, the same year they gained independence, mind you. The same year they gained independence. 25th November 1960, same year they gained independence. Just imagine, in the space of few months after getting independence, imagine all the terrible things that happened in the country. Few months after getting independence, just look at how the country had already become chaos. The country had already turned into chaos. So October 21st November 1960, Patrice Lumumba was like, okay, he wanted to go to Stanleyville to go and see some of his allies, like some of the people that were on his side. So because they are organized like a meeting where lots of his supporters they're like, okay, we want to talk to our leader. So he's like, okay, let me go and see them so that we can have a meeting on what we are going to do next. Because I cannot stay under this house already. I cannot stay in this house for long. I just want to see my people. We discuss on the next move. So this the UN they were like, okay, if you leave this house, you are not still going to be under our protection, because the only reason why you are still safe, the reason why they have not killed or captured you till now, is because you are under our protection. The UN like, okay, if you leave this house, you are not going to be under our protection anymore. But he was like, okay, now I have to go and see my supporters, my allies. We have to discuss on the next step forward. I cannot just stay here. So he left to Stanleyville, 25th November, like I said, 1960. After 6 days of chasing him, on the 1st of December 1960, he was captured. He was arrested with two of his major allies, Joseph Okito and Maurice Pulu. So those are two of his major allies at that time. He was arrested with them. From there, they were taken to Kasavubu, presented to Kasavubu. After they captured, they went presented to Kasavubu. And from there, okay, they sent him to Katanga prison. Then in Katanga prison, he was then beaten and killed. After beating and he was beaten, then taken outside and shot. He was beaten and shot. After beaten and shot, obviously he was dead. Him and his two allies, Joseph Okito and Maurice Pulu. So as they were beaten, shot and killed, they were now buried in a very shallow grave. A very, very shallow grave. But the next day after, they're like, okay, they came out and dug off the body. They removed the bodies from the shallow grave. They dug the shallow grave, removed the bodies, and they cut the body into pieces, dissolve it in acid. And there was nothing left of Patrice Lumumba. There was nothing left of Patrice Lumumba. Nothing left. There was no bone because he had obviously been dissolved in acid. Everything was gone. Even something left for his wife to bury him with, or something left for his wife to bury him with. There was nothing left. Like no bone, nothing. But years later, in 2022, yes, years later in 2022, I think um there was this there was this Belgium military official that came out and said, okay, I was the one who did were the ones who did the who dissolved Patrice Lumumba's bone in remains in acid, but there was this golden teeth that he had that refused to dissolve. So he now came out and like, okay, this is Patrice Lumumba's golden teeth. So in 2022, after all the up and downs, the legal up and downs, his family was able to now get the permission to take his golden tooth from that Belgian official back to Congo. And as the golden tooth was brought back to Congo, it was now used as his remain. They now did his official funeral rites and everything. They now did his funeral and everything, and he was then laid to rest. So this is the story of Patrice Lumumba. Just type in the comment section what you think, because I think Patrice Lumumba was a great person that was killed untimely, that was killed before he could manifest the greatness, because the visions he had for his people Congo were really fantastic. When you read of them, the vision, even though he was very rational and he was taking drastic decisions, but if you come to think of it, Patrice Lumumba was a great leader. I don't know what you think. Just type in the comment section. Patrice Lumumba was a really, really fantastic and great leader for me. It's just that he was taken before his time. The visions he had, the way he spoke, he made sure he understood what his people wanted. He understood his people. He did not just come out and just he understood what his people wanted, and he wanted to provide it for them. But unfortunately, time was cut short for him. I think he was a great leader. He was a great leader. Rest in peace to Patrice Lumumba, and type what you think in the comment section. So this is the end of the video, talking to you guys about Patrice Lumumba. Don't forget to like, follow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your post notification to get notified anytime I post a fantastic new video. So and don't forget to also click on my profile and check out other videos, other history videos about other monumental figures in history. So subscribe, like, turn on your post notification, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.